Hello, Ketonians around the globe, and hello, carnivore tribe people. Here in Mostar, Herzegovina, we are having a carnivore retreat with Dr. Shawn Baker and some other participants. So I think it was a great idea. How did you actually react when I first invited you? What did you think of who are these Greeks doing some carnivore retreats?
Well, I've been following you on social media for a
We've
couple
been
of
following
years
each
now.
other.
I've been seeing stuff from you, and I always thought going to Greece or going to this part of the world would be wonderful. So I look forward to it. So I didn't think anything. I was just like I said, making sure I had the time, and it was lucky that we were already going to kind of be in the Europe area anyway. So it was a perfect way to do this, and it has been wonderful. I'm glad it was a great decision. So far, we've had some wonderful, wonderful food. These guys are terrific hosts. The rest of the guests have been amazing. We've seen some amazing stuff. We have more amazing things to do, and I'm super excited, super
I
happy to
think
be
we
here.
just heard bear. It could be goat or sheep. I'm not sure.
That may be breakfast tomorrow. I don't know.
Yeah, that could be our breakfast. Yeah. So when we say Mediterranean carnivore, you tasted some different types of meats. You tasted different types of cheese also here, quail eggs and stuff like this. Could you compare it with a standard American carnivore diet?
Well, certainly I think the American diet mostly tends towards beef because beef is so common in the U.S. Lamb is kind of it's very expensive in the United States. Not many people are used to it, and quite honestly, the lamb here tastes different. I mean, cheese tastes different. I would say, to be honest, it's better. I mean, some of the cheeses I've had were amazing. We had fresh cheese; it was just literally made today. We had lamb in our pasta, our carnivore pasta that we just made. That was literally the lamb was slaughtered today, so it was as fresh as you can possibly get, and it changes the quality of the taste for the better, for sure.
So, as a carnivore, we saw that you've been exercising every morning. Could you help our ketonians, people who are actually struggling with somebody is traveling, somebody doesn't have space, doesn't have a gym nearby? I saw that you're doing a great exercise. I saw a video. So, could you give an advice to our viewers how to actually stay active, stay uh, trained? Because I think without training, it's not enough. Diet is great, but it's not enough. We have to do
Well,
something.
you're right. I think diet is essential. Diet is important, and I think you cannot forget that part of it. But I think the training just provides extra. We're designed to move as human beings, and like I said, we talked about. I prefer to stand and sit down usually. I spend a lot of time avoiding sedentary behavior. I think that's probably more important even than exercising is not just be sedentary all the time. So walking, and this is something we see in the European culture. It's very common to walk around meals, walk a lot of places. So that's a good part. But I do think that at some point it's an advantage to work on being a little bit stronger, being more athletic. That's what our species is designed to do. We're not designed to just sit behind a desk. We're designed to move and play and run, and it should be something that you find
How do
fun.
you do it when you're traveling? How are you doing?
Well, I mean, you can
You've been
do
all over Europe and
right.
you've been in
Sure,
hotels
sure.
and different.
There's always places you can just use your body. You can
Use
do
your body.
push-ups. You can do squats. You can go out for little sprints. You can do some jumping in
Some
place.
bands.
You can bring bands like I do in my suitcase. I've got some bands that are very good resistance, and they take up almost no room. But honestly, I've gone to places where I'll just find rocks. I'll find a big heavy rock and pick it up and carry it
That's
around
very
and
Greek
throw it.
Goes Keto style.
There
We
you go.
like
Yeah.
old-fashioned
Sure, sure.
way of living,
Yeah,
old-fashioned way
let's,
of
you look at the ancient Greeks and they had developed some very impressive athletic physiques and they didn't have a gym or a treadmill or anything. So the world is literally your playground and you can make the entire surroundings around you can be a gym. I mean, there's hills you can run up and down. There's things you can carry and pull. You can play with your children. You can
Apollonas,
chase.
could tell us a story about an ancient Greek athlete who was carrying a real calf on his.
Yeah, Milo Croton.
Exactly.
Yep.
So
I know
he
the
was.
story.
Yeah, you know the
Of course.
story.
Yeah.
So it's like basically we have these stories to learn something from them, but you could literally translate it to today's world. Take small steps, one step at a time. If it's very difficult for you to quit sugar, there are ways to work with it. There are people who can help you. There are channels you could watch some videos. How do you deal with it with your sugar addict clients, Apollonas?
Definitely, we have to fight hard about it. And first of all, with the number one and alpha or omega, if you want, is nutrition. We have to definitely cut out sugar and, of course, introduce now nutrient-dense foods. That means we will need to go with animal-based foods like meat, eggs, fish, and seafood. And after that, if you're following a ketogenic protocol, not a strict carnivore, you could maybe supplement now your plate with some veggies.
Some veggies, but I would rather go to fruits, like botanical fruits.
You could do that. You could do that, but in
Different.
the beginning, because of high content in fructose, I think it's much better to go with veggies. And after
Yeah,
that,
but low fructose.
low fructose, yeah, low glycemic, definitely. But what I want to ask now, doctor, to tell us about is about inflammation and why it's so beneficial carnivore diet.
For inflammation.
Yeah, for inflammation.
Right. Well, I mean, first of all, a carnivore diet is very low inflammation. There's a controversy about people think meat is inflammatory, which is absolutely false. I mean, I've got data on literally tens of thousands of people. I've seen their inflammatory markers, and not only their blood markers, but objectively, their inflammation of their joints goes away. Everything gets better. And I think one of the problems is there's different types of inflammation. That there's acute inflammation that we expect to have. When we exercise, we create inflammation. When we eat, there is a brief period of inflammation, which is normal. And the vegans will say, well, if you eat meat, your inflammatory markers go up transiently. But that's very different than the inflammation that occurs with chronic disease. And so what you see is, and I see this over and over again, when I look at carnivore laboratory results after someone's been on the diet 3 or 4 months, they're rock bottom. Their inflammatory markers are rock bottom, and they feel it. Mm-hmm. They feel like, wow, my back pain went away, my knee pain.
Inflammation means pain.
Right.
Always.
Exactly. Well, often it does. Yes, it's true.
Yeah, not always, but very often.
But there is a context, just like anything else. We don't want our glucose to be zero, but we don't want it to be sky high. So I think that why does it limit inflammation? I think opposed to human beings.
So, people think that they need more fiber in order to have the proper bowel movement. Is this correct? Of course not. Why would you eat paper, guys? I mean, you don't need paper.
Well, I mean, you need paper if your diet is sugar and junk food. Then the paper makes it better, perhaps, because you're not eating as much sugar and junk food. But if you think about it, if I have to eat cardboard or wood fiber or whatever you want to call fiber.
They actually eat wood, these shavings of, I think...
Sawdust, yeah.
Yeah, it's like...
Or bamboo, yeah.
Bamboo, yeah.
But generally people are asking about constipation when it comes to carnivore diet, that maybe it's happening for them once every 3 or 5 days.
So there's we first have to be very important about how we define things. So constipation doesn't mean I have a bowel movement. I don't have a bowel movement every day. Constipation means I accumulate a lot of waste and I can't get rid of it. And it can be painful. It can lead to all kinds of symptoms. Now, just because you don't have a bowel movement every single day on a carnivore diet, and some do, some don't, some may every 2 days, every 3 days, that is completely within the normal range of human digestive. The often range is quoted between several times a day to a couple times a week to even once a week can be normal for people depending on how much they're eating. And so I actually did research on the carnivore diet. In 2017, we did a study of 100 people for 90 days, and we asked their bowel movements, and on average, it was 1.2 bowel movements per day. So it was like, every 5 days you would have 6 bowel movements on average, but there's a wide range in that. So while a few percentage of people do have constipation. It's about 2 or 3%. That's based on the data we got from Harvard University when they studied 2,000 people on the carnivore diet. So it's no higher than the general population. And a lot of people that already have constipation may continue to do so on a carnivore diet, but it's more of a neuromuscular and a physiologic problem. It's not because of what you're eating. And what you could do is actually make it worse. Dr. Paul Mason talks about, if you have a traffic jam, you don't fix a traffic jam by adding more cars in that. So there's data out there showing that going to a zero carb diet actually, particularly for people with chronic constipation, actually is the best way to resolve that.
It's really a good point. Our Greek Goes Keto funds usually they start with the keto Mediterranean diet or low carb, and everybody tries carnivore. But we use it, most of us, we use it as a tool, something that can fix everything that regular keto can't. Usually people start with keto or low carb and then somehow they switch. Some stay on carnivore like you did. Now what carnivore does, it's cleaning your taste buds so good that meat or some other dairy products, they taste sweet. So you just had some sour cream. And you said, what sweetener you put inside? I said, no, I didn't put any sweetener, just a splash of vanilla extract. And you said, but it tastes sweet. It's because you can feel the natural sweetness of fatty sour cream, which was not sour at all. It was 30%.
I was shocked.
Fat.
She told me there was no sweetener on there, and I was like, this tastes like it's rich,
sweet,
luxurious, just very tasty sweet dessert. And it was literally sour cream and a little bit of vanilla, and it was quite surprising.
That's exactly what you could say to your clients. You need some period of carnivore, and then you will be able to taste sweetness from real food. You will not need sugar or whatever sugar substitute once you clean your
taste buds.
Well, it's interesting because when I was a sugar addict myself back in the day, I could not get a dessert that was sweet enough because I was so used to having sugar in everything that you get a dessert and it was very sweet, but you couldn't tell, and you just want more and more sweetness. And now it's like anything with even a hint is super sweet to you. And so you think about maybe a piece of fruit would have been a rare dessert back in the day. And now people, like kids and stuff, they don't think fruit is sweet enough for them because they've got to have this concentrated, constant stream of syrups and sugars, which is really harming people,
Exactly. This is as much as we love it as kids, everybody loves the taste of sweetness. Even the babies, they smile immediately. There's something in this connection with the flavor of sweetness, but mother's milk is naturally sweet. We know it. Goat milk is naturally sweet. So you do not need too much of the sweetener. You need just tiny little bit if you are just switching. And then once you reach a year of carnivore, I'm sure everybody would be able to taste.
Another question comes up very often is what about fruits and veggies and all the vitamins that maybe we're missing?
Some carnivore promoters, we will not name them, they say that carnivore should eat honey, carnivore should eat fruit in general. And how can this be called carnivore then?
Well, it's not. Whether you can tolerate that or not is a different argument. Do you have to do that to be successful? Absolutely not. I'm living proof of someone who doesn't do that. I am aware of thousands and thousands of people that are very successful. And the problem is, I think for some people, particularly they're very sick and are addicted to foods, when you add a little bit of sweeteners and sugars and artificial sweeteners and honeys, it can be a problem for them. And the other thing is, a lot of people, particularly if you have an autoimmune disease, you really need to eliminate everything. You really do, and that's not a good approach. And so, depending upon who you are, now if you're metabolically healthy and you just don't want to eat processed food, that's probably a good way to go. You eat mostly meat, you have a little fruit, a little honey, maybe some other whole foods.
What about children? What would be a proper children's diet?
Well, I think the first thing you want to do with kids is get plenty of animal products. I mean, that should be the basis.
Large portion on a plate.
Yeah, they get a lot of that. And if they're still hungry for something else, then you might put some other natural foods, maybe a piece of fruit or something.
Proper development. Yeah.
And I don't think you don't have to have it for their development, but I think, not the problem with kids are designed to be growing at a very rapid pace. And so the problem for them today often is just being able to have access to enough nutrition, and particularly, getting high quality nutrition is harder depending on where you live. Even in the United States, where there's abundance of food, but there's a very small amount of it is actually high quality nutrition. And so you load them up with all this garbage lots of calories, and they just get overweight and obese kids. And so, but if you focus on the nice thing as a parent, if you give your kids a big meal of eggs and meat and maybe some dairy and you load them up for breakfast, they're not hungry for the rest of the day. They won't be asking you every 15 minutes for a snack. If you've got 4 or 5 kids and they're asking you for food every 10 minutes, you're going to be cooking all day long. And so you load the kids up, you make sure they eat lots of the food. You only got to feed them twice a day or 3 times a day instead of 6 times a day.
Today we did a tour on the old bridge here in Mostar. It was extremely hot. You went in fasted state. You also were fasting. It was a shock for me. You were so full of energy. You didn't complain. I kept asking you, please, do you want to eat? Let's stop, eat some chavapi. Let's eat something. No, I'm okay. I'm waiting for the carnivore pasta that we're going to make later. And I was really impressed. How do you do that? How do you do those hours of fasting without even thinking about food?
Well, I mean, you think about it. We went to dinner last night at a wonderful restaurant. It was Barak and
Borak at Shiraki.
Shiraki
Brieg.
and we had probably, I think we each ate probably at least 1.5 to 2 kilos of meat last night.
Yeah, definitely.
So that fuels you up. And you think about it, this is how ancient warriors used to do it. They would go, you talk about the Mongolians, they would sit down and eat an entire sheep in 24 hours, and then they wouldn't have to eat again for a week. And so when you load your body up, your body knows, and it sits there and it holds it into your digestive tract and it slowly digests it, so you have plenty of nutrition. And I think it was almost 20 hours fasted.
Yes,
We ate,
it was
and I was just
20
starting to
hours.
get a little bit hungry. But once I ate, it was delicious, and we just ate a bunch. So
You can check the recipe for Greek Goes Keto Carnivore pasta or Carnivore tagliatelle, as we call it, zero carb tagliatelle. I'd like to mention something which is extremely important. We mentioned kids, and I want to talk about teenagers. I noticed a raise in the veganism or vegetarian movement or like switch among teenagers. We have a very good friend in Greece who is struggling with her daughter. Daughter is 14 or 15 years old, extremely sick, but she doesn't want to quit her veganism. And it's becoming more and more difficult. We have so many recovered vegans, people who like from veganism strictly, excuse me, go to carnivore. What we can do about it? I mean, we need to talk a little bit more why this is especially for girls, teenage girls. This is like the worst thing they could do to their health. So what can we do about it? How can we fight against it?
Well, I think we have to. First of all, we have to realize this is a problem, and it's really going to harm the health of these kids, not only the physical health but the mental health. And
Mental health is like extremely endangered when it comes to teenagers and veganism. It's you're in trouble.
Yeah, a lot of people, and a lot of people will, their entire life will be predicated on what they do as a teen. They can make mistakes, they can ruin them for the rest of their life. So you just have to realize as a parent or someone who's concerned, grandparent, whatever, you have to know that this is an issue and be concerned about it. And then you just have to be persistent and continue to address this issue. You can't just pretend it's a phase that's going to go away, because it is something where they really are doing harm to themselves. And I know that there's a lot of emotional arguments and there's a lot of propaganda within the media talking about this stuff. But at the end of the day, I take care of vegans every single week, lots of them that have ruined their lives literally. And sometimes it's permanent. Sometimes they can't fix it. And all they can do is try to get back to some level of normalcy. It is important to educate, and this is a problem for everybody, but educate people on how food is actually produced and where it's produced, and know about it, and realize that all food production is going to require the loss of animal life. There's just no way around that. And so you can pick and choose and say, if you think cows and pigs and sheep are more important, or is it going to be rabbits and foxes and voles and mice and all the snakes and birds? Something is going to die for you to eat. And so I think it's important that we realize that, and then we realize the sacrifice that's going on, because at the end of the day, even all of us will become food for something, whether it's worms or the bacteria or something.
Dinosaurs.
So dinosaurs,
Aliens.
well, who knows? But eventually, that's what's the fate of all of us. And so we just have to realize now we can all work together to continue to ensure or to make the process as good as it can be. Work on making it humanely raised and humanely slaughtered. And yes, there is such thing as humane slaughter. And you know, I think if I think about a cow being bolted and its throat slit, where it's within a millisecond, it's lost all consciousness and doesn't know, versus what happens in a field when a mouse is poisoned. And yes, this is done intentionally. You know, you go to a field, they spray pesticides, they spray rodenticides. Those animals are poisoned. It takes them days to die. They're suffering, and that is for the vegan food. That's not for the carnivore food.
And I think
Any more questions?
about young women, of course, they have hormonal disbalances, and
That's it.
they have amenorrhea.
If
so
you
many
start
problems.
very early as a vegan, the rest of your life you're going to struggle with your hormones. I never was a vegan. Luckily, I'm very traditional. Here in this area, we eat a lot of dairy, a lot of meat, a lot of fish. Fish is on the menu once or twice per week, fish or seafood. So I would really like to thank you and your family for joining us. It was such a lovely experience. We are looking forward to hosting you in Greece, and I'm sure you're going to love Greece as much as you love Herzegovina. You haven't seen all of it. We are going some places tomorrow. I'd like also to invite everybody to follow us on all our social media and visit Greek Goes Keto website. Of course, Dr. Shawn Baker, if you have a teenager, this is what I've done with a friend of mine. I just didn't want to talk to his son who went vegan for a year. I just said, follow Dr. Shawn Baker. This is the best thing you can do. Let the teenagers follow his channel, YouTube channel, or any other social media. I think you're huge on Instagram, on YouTube.
Yeah, Shawn Baker, MD, guys, Instagram and Twitter, and of course, Shawn Baker on YouTube. And of course, you need to stay tuned, as we said, about the carnivore retreat next year. If you have any inquiries about it, greekgoesketo@gmail.com, so we can give you any details. Yeah, greekgoesketo.com, and that's it.
Yeah, I'd love to meet anybody there at the next year's retreat.
Wouldn't it be great, guys?
These guys are great, I'll tell you.
Thanks.
If you're thinking about it, don't hesitate. It's a great experience.
Great.